last week, Microsoft unveiled the latest revision to the Xbox 360. The iconic off-white game console has been replaced by a smaller and glossier black machine. Here to give us, well, a little deeper insight into what Microsoft did and didn't do to the new box, AnandTech's own Anand Shimpi. Welcome back, Anand.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. Veronica's been obsessed about it. You recently posted a feature on AnandTech.com, the new Xbox 360. You kind of got inside and got a tight look at what's going on. What are the first things you noticed about Microsoft's latest gaming box?
The exterior stuff is pretty, I guess that's obvious, right? They went to a smaller case, a much glossier case. Obviously, it uses less power. Compared to the first Xbox, it's like half the power. Compared to the previous generation, you're looking at, somewhere between like a 10 to 20% power drop. It's not bad. And if you look at power consumption when you just have it plugged in, there's some significant savings there. So like the older Xboxes would draw about 2 watts at the outlet, at the wall, just turned off, just sitting there.
Right.
And the new one draws like almost half a watt.
Does that,
so it's not bad.
Is it as loud? Because I remember like one of the most distinctive features of the Xbox 360 was the giant cooling fans of Doom. Has the power reduction, does that mean they're basically using parts that are generating less heat inside?
Yeah, there's a lot of Moore's Law that happened in there, and we'll get to that in a second. Basically, there's now a single large fan, like a slow spinning fan inside that cools the CPU, GPU, and all that stuff, and that doesn't generate too much noise. The biggest culprit actually in the previous Xbox was the DVD drive that just made an absurd amount of noise. And they've gone to a new revision of the drive. It's a light-on drive this time around, and they've actually put like a little rubber surround around the back of it to hopefully kind of dampen some vibrations and stuff like that. The overall result from what I measured was about a 5 decibel drop, measured about 2 or 3 inches away from the device. So it's not silent. Like you can build an HD PC that's quieter, but I would consider it to be like bearable now. It's not like a ridiculously loud machine.
So they also bundled finally the wireless adapter and an adapter in there, and a 250 gigabyte hard drive seems huge compared to what they were selling just a couple years ago. Yeah,
the first boxes came with 20 gigs, and obviously back then you couldn't install games to the drive. So now you can, and 250 gigs is nice. It's not particularly fast storage. It's still a 5400 RPM laptop drive. It's actually the old SATA 1.5 gigabit standard. Like this box is still all about kind of making sure Microsoft is as profitable as possible and not necessarily, I guess, delivering the best overall experience. But to Microsoft's credit, it is still a significant improvement over the previous generation. Well, when I took the thing apart, there are a couple things that are pretty evident now. On the old boxes, some people got really, really good at opening them up, modding them, and making it look like no one ever got into the machine. That's pretty much impossible to do now unless people get really, really clever. So there's some tabs that you have to pretty much break on both sides of the box to actually get into it. The box will still put itself, like you can still put it back together and it works fine, and it doesn't look like it's been tampered with, but Microsoft can easily tell if you've been in. And there are a couple of points during the teardown process that actually will indicate to Microsoft whether or not someone has been inside the machine. And I don't know how much of a problem that really was. Online, a lot of people were talking about doing it, but Microsoft seems to have wanted to put actual effort into fixing it. Once you get inside, Microsoft has used a lot of the kind of magic of Moore's Law to combine what used to be a discrete CPU package and a GPU plus embedded DRAM package into a single chip. And it's now covered with a heat spreader, which also avoids any potential damage issues. If you're in there mucking around trying to replace the heatsink or put something else on there, you won't run the risk of cracking the core anymore. But there's a tremendous amount of integration that's been done. Now you have a single chip with presumably 1 or 2 die on there, fabbed at what I'm hearing is 45 nanometers out at Global Foundries, and it results in a cooler box, a much more tightly integrated package, and you also see a significant reduction in idle power. So the whole box, just when you have it turned on and you're just sitting at the dashboard, it draws 70 watts compared to closer to 90 for some of the older ones, and double that for the first one.
Wow.
The putting that in perspective, though, that's actually not that efficient, right? So if you take like a Clarkdale Core i3, i5 system with a beefy video card, those will idle around 70 watts, but they'll be a lot faster. Pull out the video card, and those things are idling down at like 40 to 50 watts. So it's good for a 360. It's not as good in terms of what we have today on the PC side. But then again, it's also a lot cheaper than a full-fledged PC.
I was going to say, it would have been the Core i3 parts would have been nice, and the lower power consumption would have been great, but there would have been a lot of clock cycles sitting unused because developers don't want to develop console games that only work on the latest consoles, but the expense on that would have been huge. The integrated, you mentioned earlier that the idle power is down, basically it's not sucking as many watts when it's off. How about when you're actually full throttle gaming? Does the integrated CPU and GPU, does that give you any sort of performance benefit at that point for anybody out there, say maybe running folding cycles 24/7 or doing some serious out of control gaming?
As far as we can tell, it's everything runs at the same clock speed. It's got the same functionality. It's all about reducing cost. There's obviously a power benefit at a full load, right? Like the most I could ever get this thing to draw under full load was, I think, less than 97 watts. Huh. So it's good. It draws, I would say, on average about 90 watts full load in the latest games, and that's compared to over 100 for everything else, and nearly 180 in the first generation Xbox 360.
Okay, so it's quieter. It consumes less power. I mean, do you feel like it's a serious improvement to older Xbox 360s? Because I mean, certainly, I think anybody, like I said, I've got 3 friends now who are swapping out their recently replaced boxes from Red Rings of Death, and I think they're all going to go for the new boxes. Do you feel like this is a solid step up from the last generation of Xbox 360?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's the type of thing where it depends on what you do, right? If you've got a 360 that works and all you do is play games on it, $300 is a lot to spend. Even $200 is a lot to spend. Just wait till yours dies and then go out and get one of these. If you're getting a new one, obviously, I don't think there's any reason to take the discounted current ones that are on the market and go out and get one of these new ones instead. I think that makes more sense. If you are an owner of an Xbox that works totally fine, but you do use it for more of the HTPC, more of the media center kind of features, it is nice. This thing is a lot quieter, and it is a bit smaller. Then there's also the last revision of the Xbox 360 before this one, codenamed Jasper. That was supposed to be the one that couldn't red ring anymore. In terms of that failure wasn't supposed to happen anymore. And so far reports have been really good on that. So if you want a little more, I guess, guarantee that you'll be able to have a lasting console, this in theory should have none of those problems, right? It might have new ones, but it shouldn't have any of the original red ring problems that were caused by faulty solder joints or defects in the underfill on the GPU or CPU.
That's a big plus. Anand, awesome information as always. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and be on the show. What's coming up on AnandTech.com? What should everybody at Tekzilla in the audience should be looking out for?
I've got like a ridiculously busy week. So there's all the smartphone stuff, of course. iPhone 4, iOS 4. I've been cranking on the EVO 4G from Sprint. And we're doing our typical like super deep dive performance, battery life, everything, full analysis there. A lot of interesting stuff is happening in SSDs, of course. I've got a bunch of new SSDs on the test bench. Some exciting stuff that I can't talk about yet, and even some new mobile hard drives that came out. So those are the things I'm predominantly spending most of my time with. And then I've got the usual. I've got some more CPU tests to run. We're going to be updating our live benchmarking database with some more data there. So a lot of stuff happening this week alone.
Anand, thank you so much. I personally will be scoping the website because I have to replace yet another notebook hard drive. This one didn't die, it's just gotten too small.